Welcome back everyone. So today I'm going to be focusing on the journey towards financial independence. And so I'm going to be providing you with what I consider to be the 4 topmost processes when you go through this journey towards financial independence. I just want to provide everyone with an update on my YouTube channel. So I have a new email address, it's on the screen, which is jayjamesinvestor@gmail.com. The goal here is for anyone to write any questions that you may have, and we can use these questions as a talking point for future videos. And so your question might be featured depending on the context, and I'll be providing a screenshot of the comment and I'll be discussing in future videos. And equally, you can add comments within the actual video which may or may not be featured as well. So the choice is yours, but for anyone who wants my actual opinion on certain topics, then feel free to write in. Now, as for my account, we can see we're at 11,300, and looking at the pies, which I mostly fund through the pie structure these days, and we can see that for every fund that is actively funded, they're all in the green. And what's interesting here is that real estate has currently grown to close to 10%, and then contrasting to healthcare, so that has the smallest amount of gain. So for close to £650 there's just been a profit of £1.89, so 0.29% gain. So it'll be interesting to see in the future which type of sector is outperforming the others. In the past it's generally been the technology sector if we take say a 5 to 10 year window, so that's something that we can look into in the future. So just the general process of automatically funding into these pies with an account value of over £11,000 and a return of slightly over 4%. So onto this journey of financial independence. Now, everyone is different with their journey. The first situation you want to avoid is having a large amount of debt. Now, we have to be clear on the definition of debt because there is good forms of debt and there's also bad forms. So if we look at student finance, car loans, credit card bills, they're all examples of incurring debt, and we will have to pay that back in the future. So I would argue that student debt is a good form of debt, and if you have a credit card in which you pay off the debt in full, then you can also see that as good debt. And that's just because credit cards have an inherent advantage to that of say a debit card, so in the form of cashback that you receive, in the form of protection, and also the delay on actually paying back. But this is only beneficial if you pay off your debt in full, and it's very simple to achieve. Just have a direct debit that takes the full amount off every single month. And of course, don't overspend. So I would classify those two examples, student debt and credit cards paid off in full, as good forms. Now there's other scenarios, as I said, car loans. Those forms of debt are pretty much the worst. So if you find yourself in a situation where you're having to pay off these bills, then your first step to financial independence is to clear away those forms of debt. I would say don't even invest in the likes of the stock market, because as you saw earlier with my account, I have an increase of around 4% in my portfolio. So if you have around say 8% because you've overspent on your credit card, then definitely pay that off first. Only once your debt has cleared do you want to start investing into the stock market, because the stock market is a long-term process. There's many fluctuations, so in the short term, clear away as much debt as possible. Now we have to think to ourselves, why is it that it's so hard to get out of this debt process? Now the key here is that we have no assets. Now it's actually very simple to picture because we just have to think about assets versus liabilities. So in the case of assets, when we incur debt, there's a high probability that we don't have any assets. For instance, we don't have any ownerships of stocks which are paying us. Now, generally speaking, if you find yourself with a high amount of debt, it generally means that you don't have any assets whatsoever. And if you do, then they're a poor choice of being an asset. But what we do have is a lot of liabilities, so the likes of car loans and other forms of debt that we just have struggled to pay off. So all of this results in a negative net worth. And the key to get out of this situation is to either increase your cash flow, and it's of course easily said than done, but to increase your income, you generally need to find a new job or find a job if you don't have one currently. Or the second option is to simply decrease your expenses. So a very simple way is to eat out less, for instance. Now, given the times, hopefully that's less frequent anyway, but if you look at your standard routine, look into ways that you can reduce your expenses and go from there. So once you've cleared out any forms of debt, then you're definitely ahead of the game at this point. So here at stage 2, already we're ahead of 30% of the UK population. And so these individuals are literally living paycheck to paycheck. So all the money that they receive in the form of income is then spent on all the expenses for the month. And there is no additional money to, for instance, invest in the stock market or to fund other avenues to increase your assets. So at stage 2, we're no longer living paycheck to paycheck. And over time, your net worth will continue to increase with the extra funds that you have. But the caveat here is that we must be buying actual assets. If we just have an increase in money that we've just left in the bank account, for instance, then our money is not working to the full potential that it has. Now, of course, having money in a bank account is better than, say, stashing it in your home because it's just decreasing in value due to inflation. And so once you take this extra money and you convert that money into assets, over time, you will build up your asset column. But of course, in the short run, you may still have some quote-unquote good liabilities. And so student debt could be one of those considered good debt, but only if it's resulted in you having a solid job that pays more than the average salary in the UK. A much better form of good debt is probably a mortgage that you are paying off, because as you pay off your mortgage, you're increasing your home ownership, which is an asset class. And so you're generating wealth as time goes on in the form of the home ownership. But overall, these are good liabilities. They're ones that you want to continue to pay off as time progresses. And you may still be in this stage 2 even if you don't have a mortgage. As long as you are increasing your asset column, that could be buying into more companies that pay dividends or just growth-based companies. All these areas help you to increase your asset column. And so moving on to the third stage, which is being debt-free. And so here your net worth is actually positive as you have no liabilities. With no monthly payments, you can further grow your investments with minimal risk. And in the near future, your assets will be generating money for you. And at this stage, it's really difficult to revert back to stage 1 unless you've done something really wrong. So the fundamental difference between stage 2 and stage 3 is that we can use our existing investments to then fund the growth of the investment. Now at this debt-free stage, you may still need to work a job. The assets that you do have, if you really wanted to, you could stop allocating funds from your day job and your asset column will continue to grow on its own. And then shortly after this stage, we come to stage 4. So at this point, we have the ability to quit our 9-to-5 job. And so if you find yourself wondering, should I end my 9-to-5 job with no impact on the way that you currently live, then you've made it to stage 4. And so all the assets that you own, they continue to pay for a constant yet growing stream of income. And you no longer have to rely on your company to pay for your lifestyle or living costs. Now, I want to make it clear that I'm not saying that if you end up quitting your job, then you're magically at stage 4. What I'm stating is that your asset column has to be generating an equal amount and ideally more than what you were being paid in the form of your salary. And it's not easy to reach stage 4. Let's just say your standard salary is £2,000 every month. To have an asset column that generates £2,000 every month is very difficult to achieve. And on top of that, it needs to be a consistent basis. So it's not the case that you quit your job and then you start investing in growth-based stocks, you decide to sell out and you make 2k profit for the month, but then you can't repeat that on the following month. So the goal here is to have consistent income that at least matches what you would have earned prior to quitting your job. And you can take stage 4 to a more simplistic level. If you know what your expenses are for a given month, then if your asset column is equal to your expenses for the month, then you have also reached stage 4. Now in my case, I would say that I'm at stage 2 right now on this journey. Now my liabilities right now are mainly tied up to the cost of renting. For most people, paying rent is quite common. There's other people that are younger in their life and potentially they're living with their parents, so you don't have that form of liability. And so the journey from stage 2 to stage 3 is more of a marathon rather than a sprint. It's going to take a while to reach that stage. And so my first question for this week is, which stage do you think you're currently on within your investment journey? Let me know in the comment section below. So there's a company named Starship. It's a California-based company in San Francisco, and they're building a network of robots that currently serve the food sector. So how it works is you have these robots that you can see on the screen. They are land-based. meaning that their wheels are on the ground, and you can add groceries up to a certain weight and they autonomously drive themselves to the individual that ordered the food. Now, of course, there's limitations in terms of how far these robots can go, but you have a whole mesh of these robots to serve a given region. And so Starship first tested out these robots back in 2015. There's 20 countries which these tests took place, and one of the key spots was in Silicon Valley, and mainly students that were studying at campus universities. That's quite impressive given that the company only started developing the system in 2014, so a year prior. And for those that remember using Skype, there's 2 co-founders that have helped create this company. Now, for those unaware, the area in the UK named Milton Keynes, they are heavily funded by US-based companies. So if you look at their cycle routes, the entire area is modelled on a layout similar to that of, say, California. And as a result, we have US-based companies entering the UK. And so earlier this year, the same product has entered Milton Keynes. This news article was picked up during the pandemic, and it seemed like perfect timing given that individuals needed to stay at home, people still needed food, so having an autonomous system that takes your food from warehouse all the way to your doorstep became more of a necessity rather than a gimmick. So it's close to 200,000 residents that have had an autonomous vehicle bringing food deliveries to them. Now, with the likes of the gig economy such as Deliveroo, there were less cyclists able to deliver your food. The likes of Starship with their 6-wheeled vehicles are definitely a step up in terms of autonomy. Of course, we have the situation where a lot of the jobs where individuals could earn a little bit of extra money, we are seeing this transition where robots are taking away those jobs. So as with any form of autonomy, this is the risk that we have. But with the likes of robot deliveries, they came at a very ideal time. I haven't actually seen these robots in action yet, so if there's anyone that happens to live in Milton Keynes in the UK, then do let us know if you've seen any of these. Now, of course, demand has been high as expected, and there are plans to expand further across the UK and, of course, the US. I think the next step for this company is to increase their relations with the likes of large supermarkets. In the future, and this is all speculative, but we could be looking at larger fleets, given that people normally order a higher weight of items. But it's only natural that this company really wants to make sure that their fleet of vehicles are performing as expected, given that they're fully autonomous. They have to cross the road on their own. There's no hand-holding there. So if this does work, and it's looking promising at the moment, then we're probably going to see these vehicles on our streets on a more reoccurring basis. Now, for these vehicles to achieve full autonomy, they must be having a camera of some sort, probably a LiDAR camera. I assume that the company has a deterrent mechanism to prevent individuals from trying to damage these vehicles. And of course, with more vehicles on the street, there is a little bit more congestion. There's an argument for the limited but public resource of the pavements that we have. And if these vehicles are going to be using up pavement, then they need to be going at a slow speed, not to hurt any civilians that may be walking past. Now, over a year ago, we also had Amazon that was entering this robotic delivery service. It definitely seems as though Starship is the leader in this sector right now, and I'm all for competition entering the market, but generally speaking, if we have a Starship robot that works in one region, and then we have, say, an Amazon-based robot working in another sector, then as a company they are a duopoly, but per region they have a monopoly. Hopefully a couple enter this market, but not so many that we have 2 different vehicles driving down on the pavement. But as it stands right now, Amazon is just testing in the US. They haven't entered the UK just yet. It's a similar 6-wheeled vehicle, but it's just interesting to point out that there's other companies that are entering this space. Amazon is one of the most likely competitors to want to join this sector, given their desire for drone-based technology to deliver packages to the doorstep. And we can see this article is pretty old, given that it references the likes of Milton Keynes in the UK. And at the time they were running trials, now it's a full-on process. So in the comment section below, let me know your thoughts. Does this excite you that we have autonomous land robots to help with our grocery shopping? Or do you think that this is just a little bit gimmicky? Some of these robots can only have a weight of less than 2.6 kilograms, so potentially your full shop would have to be ordered over several times, which might not be cost effective. I just want to thank all the new subscribers. There's been a few of you out there, so I just want to welcome you to my channel. For anyone that enjoys my videos, feel free to give a thumbs up. I have one main video that comes out every week, and within the news portion of each video, you've probably noticed that I separate those videos out just in case individuals are interested in a news-based section. So if you're yet to subscribe, then I'm not sure what you're waiting for. But thanks for watching, as always, everyone, and with that said, I'll catch you in the next one.